So some have circles and squares. None of them are the same. They're all shapes. And they're similar. This is diversity. It is the balance of our similarities and our differences. What kinds of shapes would we label those if we were to talk about them? They are called what kinds of shapes? Geometric shapes. They're all geometric shapes, right? How they get expressed is very different, but their function and how we see them in the world is very much the same, right? So diversity is this idea of the balance between our differences and our sameness. When we talk about this idea of equity, if we look at letter E, and we talked briefly about this earlier, that equality is saying that we all have the same thing. Now, it was interesting in the game, and I don't know that anybody picked it up because I don't know that people cross-pollinated enough to pick it up, but in the two groups over here, how many cards did you have?
5.
You had 5 cards. You had equality on this side. On this side of the room, how many cards did you have? 2 and 3s. Right? Within your group, you had equality. You had 2s and 3s. In the overall scheme of the room, we had a system that was designed for inequity, right? So we'll leave it at that. So this idea of equity is making sure that people get what they need. And the word that gets used with equality, oftentimes, and you'll hear this, is fair. Have you heard that before? Yeah, equality is fair. Equity, by the nature of equality being fair, equity is unfair. Now, when we start talking about equity and we start talking about it being unfair, that gets emotional. That's a hard place to come to, that we're going to create a system that is unfair but gives people what they need. That's a tricky place to be in. But if we want to see some changes in our organizations, we have to start moving to getting people what they need and not just what we want to provide in our organizations. Here's a good example. So